Grayman. Grayman falls into the category espionage and counterintelligence because that is where it comes from. I read a lot of things on the internet. I was looking for things to steal, things to share, videos and the like, and I didn't really find too much compelling information on Grayman. Some of it has a lot of good info, it's just not really in the Grayman category. Your everyday carry kit has nothing to do with being a Grayman. There's one website, I can't remember the name of it, the guy was a former counterintelligence officer, and he had some pretty good information. But the idea behind the Grayman is situational awareness, and they operate and live their lives as though they're always under surveillance. That is the start to being a Grayman. That's the only way you can maintain the level of situational awareness you need to be a Grayman, to go unseen, is you have to have the lifestyle. Grayman is not something you do, it's someone that you are. It's part of the tradecraft that's taught in the espionage courses, and it's just the way you have to live your life. So if you're reading this stuff and they say, oh yeah, you need to become a Grayman when shit hits the fan. Well, that's wonderful, but if you're not already a Grayman, you're going to have a hard time pulling that off, especially if there's anybody around that knows what they're doing and what they're looking for. Part of being always under surveillance is actually establishing patterns that are false. So we all have patterns. We go to school or we go to work. We go to the store. We take the kids to after school programs. We go to church on Sunday. Maybe we always go watch MMA or football at the restaurant, sports place, whatever. But part of what the Grayman does is he establishes his own routine and patterns, multiple ones, that are false, meaning they make absolute sense. If you followed him and saw what he's doing, it looks like that's what he's doing. And he does it as a pretense so that if he actually is being surveilled or thinks he's being followed, he can pick a pattern that would make sense at that time and initiate it and execute and follow that pattern. And once he's satisfied that he can break that pattern and return to, say, his house or break away and, say, escape or evade, that's what he does. And all these patterns have timelines, locations, you have predetermined and pre-established primary, secondary, alternate routes, primary, secondary, alternate surveillance detection routes, which is a whole other subject, but it has to do with the way you drive in order to determine if you're being surveilled, or the way you walk, the pattern you follow. Now that's just actions that take a lot of training and a lot of practice. Like where I live, part of the reason I picked it is I can drive in and out of here in about 6 or 7 different ways. I can do it any time of the day, and it looks normal just because of the way my neighborhood's set up. Now, a lot of the stuff you read talks about blending. Blending is true. How a lot of it's said is not true. I read some stuff that said, if you're a young guy or a young girl, you need to act like you're weak or frail, and if you're an old person, you need to act a certain way. Completely inaccurate. What you blend to is your environment. So if you're on a college campus and there's a lot of people around your age dressing and acting a certain way, that's how you blend and stay hidden. Being hidden in plain sight is blending according to the environment and your surroundings. It's not blending to your age or blending to anything related really to your age. When you blend to your environment, you match your surroundings, it's camouflage, and you don't stand out, which is what you want. And because you feel like you're always under surveillance and you have total situational awareness, you're always interacting. You go to the store, you talk to the cashier, you order food at the drive-thru, you go to the restaurant and tip the waiter, you talk to people in the neighborhood when you're walking your dog or getting the mail. You say hi to people if that's what people do in the area you're at. If people don't look at each other in the eyes in the store, then you don't look in their eyes. If people talk and say hi randomly or hey, can you help me get that, then you do the same thing. But while they're doing that, what you don't see is in their mind, they're a fly on the wall. More like a fly going through the room. They're observing everything. They're taking everything in. They're paying attention to their surroundings. And you cannot just say, oh yeah, I know how to do that. No, you don't. I thought I did until I went through classes for it. It's difficult, and you have to put it into practice. So if you want to try practicing it, just do something simple. Next time you go to, say, the grocery store, whether you're alone or with somebody else, in the back of your mind, try to pick something that you want to identify about everybody. I want to identify what color shirt everybody's wearing, or at least two people in every aisle and try to recall it. Or I want to figure out how many people walk or move with some sort of injury, limp, disability. Or I want to take note of everybody that looks me in the eyes. Or look for the exits. How many exits are there? How would I get to the exits? How would I move in and out of this aisle if I needed to get to the exits? And all this stuff has to be running through your mind while you're multitasking, because you don't just look around and figure this stuff out. You have to be interacting and doing all kinds of normal things. So it looks like you're just walking along, looking at your grocery case, counting your coupons, grabbing stuff off the wall, but you're thinking all this stuff in the background. But when you interact with the public, you're a non-irritant. Meaning, you go to, say, Burger King, you walk in there with the family, you got that person who comes in, they're staring up at the menu, they walk up there, their mouth's open, waiting for flies to come in, they're like, does the number 2, is there onions on that? Can I get it without ketchup? Wait a second. Oh, you got this now? You know those guys? Or the ones at the cash register that just irritate the hell out of you because they want to bitch and argue about every price, or they got 5 million coupons, or they want a rain check, or any of these other things. All those are wonderful things. But if you want to blend in, you don't do that stuff. Because anybody around you sees that. While it is normal, it's not common. And you don't know if anybody's in a hurry or if they just are an impatient person, so they're going to remember those things. And that's going to make you stand out. That's not what you want. What you want to be is standing next to the guy that's doing that. Because the natural human function and the way your brain works, when you're drawn to that person, which is subconscious most of the time, the person right next to them or near them, and assuming they're not like their partner or kid or whatever, you block them out. It's like if you watch, say, the president or a candidate or any public figure or a military officer on TV talk out in a public area, most of the time people are just watching and listening to him, and you get subconsciously drawn in that everything in the background's a blur. You don't realize everybody's standing back there. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they're doing. Those people are hidden in that situation, as long as they're addressing and acting appropriately, better than the people that are in the audience observing. Now, what's good about that is you don't want people to remember who you are. Being a gray man is being in a lineup, being guilty, and not being fingered. People just don't know who you are. Yeah, there was a guy here, I don't know, he was a bigger guy, he was a little guy, I think he was white, I think he was Hispanic, I'm not really sure. And that should be a result of how you act and how you work within your surroundings. That shouldn't be because that person's just dumb. And you have to be able to draw attention away from yourself instead of drawing attention to yourself. Now, part of that is you don't emphasize any level of attraction. And that's just not meaning like romantic attraction. You don't wear big, stupid orange or purple bright colored shirts if most people aren't wearing that in the environment you're in. You don't wear big, crazy hats. You don't have crazy designer facial hair designs or whatever with somebody's face carved in or craziness, unless that's what people are doing. Because that will make you stand out. You don't want to have any sort of attraction. If you're a person who's not in very good shape or you're overweight, you don't want to be dressing like the people at Walmart. That draws an attraction to you. In the same manner, if you are athletic, considered to be attractive and in shape, you don't dress to accentuate any of those things so that you're not drawing attraction to yourself. That doesn't mean you have to wear baggy sweats and baggy clothes all the time. You just have to dress appropriately in environments so you go unnoticed. Think of like an office environment. There's a way people dress in an office environment. And it's all somewhat kind of bland, somewhat kind of boring. And that's how you move along as a gray man. You're bland, you're boring, you're irrelevant, you don't matter. And that's actually your goal. You would be considered in the gaming, I had to look this up, but in the gaming world, role playing, they got that little grid and they say like who's evil, whatever. The true neutral is probably the closest thing to a gray man. They're the observer. Look that up, check it out. Apparently it's a really hard character to play. I don't know, I never doing that stuff, but it was a really good example. If you want to try doing some of this stuff, You might have to make changes if you really want to pull it off. But some of the things you got to look at. Look at your automobile. Look at your car, your truck, whatever you're driving. If you've got a veteran's license plate, designer license plate, got a name on there, maybe it's got something else on there. You don't want that. You want the standard license plate. Doesn't stand out. That's real that simple. You don't want big flashy rims. You don't want to overly lift the truck. You don't want to turn it into a lowrider unless that's what's in the environment you are. The kind of automobile you have needs to be the common one. Something common to that area and environment for that time of year that would just look normal, especially if it's some sort of shape of car that's common to so many other models and makes of vehicles that people aren't sure which it was. Was it this SUV or that SUV? I don't know. They all look the freaking same to me. That's the goal. Whether it's a car or it's a truck, it doesn't matter. Your clothes are the same way. Your clothes should match the environment. If you go to a lawyer's office and you dress like a homeless person, you're going to stand out. If you go to feed the homeless and you dress like a lawyer, you're going to stand out. Probably not the things you want to do. Now, sometimes you want to stand out, understandably. You know, you're going out, taking the wife or whatever, going out for a birthday, nice dinner. You stand out because you're dressing differently. That's understandable, but it's just something to think about. I wrote something down here. Oh, when you're talking, you know how you're out somewhere, you could be at church, you could be at a cash register, meeting people at some group event you're at, and people start randomly talking and they kind of let something slip that's not part of the conversation about that vacation trip they're going on. People start asking them questions about it, and they're probably not even being purposely nosy, they're just a little invasive. It's like, yeah, well, when do you normally leave for that? What time of day? You know, because I like to drive during the night. Well, you want to avoid those questions, and the thing is, you see people try to avoid that. But what you're looking for is preemptive avoidance. You have conversations that you've never had rehearsed to such a degree that you can avoid slipping any information in there and you can get away with it so they don't ever ask those questions. So when you talk, you're not being ambiguous, you're not being vague. What you're being is completely irrelevant. Everything you should say should be unmemorable. Nothing should be memorable about what you say, what you do, how you act, how you look. That's a skill. You got to work at it. Most people, especially in the Western world, cannot do it without a lot of practice. Read up on it is all I can say. Another thing, too, about a Grayman is body language. There's two sides of body language, reading it and manipulating it. It's nice to have the skill to be able to read body language, understand neuro-linguistics programming, kinesics, maybe the read technique, I-axis cueing. I've had a little bit of experience in some of that areas. It's wonderful to have, but manipulating people with your body language is more important. If you can move and act in such a way to draw attention away from yourself or to something else, or to make people feel comfortable or uncomfortable, and you consciously know what you're doing, you can completely subconsciously for them manipulate that situation, control the conversation, control where everything's going. And the whole point is to manipulate them. Manipulate them to such a degree that they think you're bending to their will when they're really bending to yours. It's really a lot of hard work to do this kind of stuff. That's why it all comes from the world of clandestine intelligence, espionage, counterintelligence. These guys go into places where they have to get things done and get out, and they don't want to die. They want to live through it. They want to be unmemorable. And people that do that kind of work, if they go work in X country for however long, whether it's a day or a year, they don't ever get to go back to that country unless they're working on a mission. But if for some reason they ended up back in that country, if they did their whole mission correctly, acting as a Grayman, nobody remember who they are. And that's the overall goal.